Now it's the French Interior Ministry saying that a near 24-hour standoff surrounding a suspected al-Qaeda terrorist who police say has admitted that he was bragging about killing a rabbi and little children at a Jewish school and French paratroopers, a man they accuse of murdering every 4 days for 3 different days, now surrounded. And the explosions we heard earlier, now the French Interior Ministry is quoted by Reuters as saying, that wasn't the beginning of an assault. We were trying to intimidate the man. Jonathan Hunt is following breaking developments along with our crews on scene. And Jonathan, they need to intimidate a guy whom hundreds of people have been surrounding for the better part of a day?
Yeah, it seems like an interesting tactic, but perhaps, Shep, this is all part of that desire to take him alive, to get as much information as they can, rather than having to go in there, and then if he pulls a gun on the police officers raiding it, they would have little choice but to shoot him and possibly kill him. So they may be trying to take him alive. Now, to be clear on this is the French Interior Minister, Claude Guéant, who, according to Le Figaro newspaper, has said that what they wanted to do, and I'm going to tell you the French words here, is mettre la pression. Now, in my understanding of French, which is pretty good, that means put on the pressure. So that is exactly the words of the Interior Minister. That appears to be what they're trying to do right now. So we go into a 21st, possibly a 22nd hour, Shep.
Jonathan, do we have information about whether negotiators are speaking with this man? Does he have demands? Anything?
Well, we know that they have been speaking with him all day. In fact, at one point, he exchanged a Colt 45 gun for a mobile phone, Shep, and they were in communication with him over that. He said, I will surrender this afternoon. He didn't. He then said, I'll surrender in the early evening. He didn't. He then said, I'll surrender in the late evening. He didn't. Now, as we go into the early mornings, he had said, I will surrender under cover of night, quote, to be more discreet. But the Interior Ministry now also saying that he has gone back on his word to surrender to police, and that is when they started this operation with those 3 blasts that we heard. Now it appears they are waiting to see what is the next stage of this. And the elite police force is called RAID, R-A-I-D. The Interior Ministry also confirming that they are not at the moment assaulting that apartment block. They are the ones who one would assume would take the final actions in this if it was indeed the final assault, Shep.
The people in France are uproarious over this, and it has become, as has been the case in France for quite some time now, a sort of us versus them. Indigenous French people versus Islamic people whom they're having a real war with.
Yeah, they have had a large number of immigrants, many of them Muslim, over the last decade or so, Shep, and there have been certain problems with some of those communities or between some of those communities. And remember, as I was saying earlier, this all taking place against the backdrop of a presidential election. There is a candidate from the Nationalist Party called Marine Le Pen. She is the daughter of the well-known former nationalist leader Jean-Marie Le Pen. And she has said this just shows that France needs, in her words, a war on Islamic fundamentalism. And that is why, exactly why, you heard President Nicolas Sarkozy appeal for French unity today and a promise that he would not allow terrorists to destroy France and its culture. Shep.
You reported earlier in this newscast, Jonathan, that when police got there like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that, they went in to try to take him alive, and he fired shots at them through the door. Do we know from French police how heavily armed he may be, or maybe even more importantly, whether there's anybody else in there with him?
They don't believe that there is anybody else in there with him. They believe he has been alone since they tried that initial assault at 3 a.m. Local time in France. That was 10 p.m. last night, Eastern time. They don't know precisely how well armed he is, but they do believe he still has some weapons. As I say, he handed over one of those, threw it out of a window, apparently, a Colt 45, in exchange for that phone. They also earlier blew up a car they believe belonged to him, which they said was full of weapons, Shep. So I imagine that is one of their main concerns now, exactly how heavily armed he remains, Shep.
Jonathan Hunt, as we follow breaking news from the newsroom and our correspondents who are on scene there in Toulouse. We're waiting for new developments in this standoff, and we'll bring them to you immediately as we get